the beginning and then go and dig deeper and see how the future of this region will be. So with me, panelists from all over the world, I would say. We have one of my mentors, Tim Draper, who's the experienced investor, and although he has plenty of experience, he still has plenty of enthusiasm and gusto. We have the co-founder of this event, Ahmed, who is an entrepreneur and an investor as well from Saudi Arabia. I know things are moving there. We have Malek, who's experienced in legal tech and experienced in the legal framework for technology. We also have Hamid, who's from Iran, and he can tell us how are things moving there. We have Juha, who's a mentor for more than 2,500 startups from Malaysia, I guess, and he's now based in Qatar. And we have also people from Egypt, and joining us later, a prominent investor from Tunisia. We have also Florian, who's from Bamboo Capital, an impact-based fund in Switzerland. So I'll start this panel with Tim. Tim, we know that you are an experienced investor. However, you still take opportunities and shots in an original way, I would say. So I would ask you, Tim, how would you perceive the Middle East and Africa region nowadays and its startup ecosystem as an investor?
Well, first, it's great to see you, Haroon, and I hope you remember the pledge. We look at the Middle East and Africa as a really interesting, booming opportunity. We have now 5 or 6 investments in the Middle East and 4 or 5 in Africa, and also have relationships with venture funds in each area. And we have found in the Middle East that there are some incredibly creative entrepreneurs doing some really interesting things. The market is interesting because in the Middle East, I always think that the valuations seem a little high, and in Africa they seem a little low. But everything from using artificial intelligence for surgery to new ways of doing this kind of thing, new ways of doing conferences. We have an African company, Aza, used to be called BitPesa, that allows people to use Bitcoin rather than using their own currency to move money across border. There are some really interesting things happening in the region. We're really excited about it. The region seems to be opening up. It seems as though there will be peace in the region, and that's quite exciting. And I think whenever there's a dynamism where there's more freedom, more trust, you end up having a culture of opportunity, and that culture of opportunity will thrive. I mean, in Singapore, it was interesting. Singapore used to be one of the poorest countries in the world, and it was not a trusted country. And then Lee Kuan Yew came in there, and about 60 years later, they're now one of the, and he made it a very, probably the most trustworthy society in the world. And now it's one of the wealthiest. So trust is a big deal. Freedom is also a big deal. I mean, the best way to describe that is you've got North and South Korea. Used to be one country. They drew a line down the middle after the Korean War. the South Koreans were capitalists, free marketeers, democracy. North Koreans were socialists, dictatorship, government controlled, and now the South Koreans make about 400 times the money that North Koreans make, and we're 4 generations in. They're now 4 inches taller than the average North Korean. So if you want your country to thrive, you add trust, you put in trust, and you put in freedom, you put in free markets. And I think both those things are happening throughout the Middle East. And when you see a dynamic that's happening like that as an investor, you rush to that area. So yeah, thank you, Haroon. Thank you for having me on your podcast.
Yeah, so just one follow-up question, Tim. I know that you have a special, I would say, theory in regards to nation states and the future of nation states. You believe that nation states would compete on entrepreneurs and talents in the future. Can you tell us more about this theory, and what are the chances of African and Middle Eastern countries in this competition, I would say?
Yeah, I think as we become more mobile, and I mean, I look at all of these people and where I don't know where any of them are. So it almost doesn't matter where you are geographically, and people will move geographically to the country that's right for them. And each country will have to compete for them. They will have to provide the kind of service that encourages entrepreneurs and business leaders and money and just humans to go to that country. You know, we used to be tribal. We used to be geographic borders really mattered a lot, and it kept us from going to war. Here's your line. You know, don't cross this border. Everybody's happy, and then you can build a culture and you can build your economy where you are. Well, once the internet happened, all of a sudden we were mobile. We were across border. We were doing business globally, and that tribalism became globalism, and the world markets grew. We brought 1 billion people out of poverty. Interestingly, the UN reported that the lockdown, not the virus, but the lockdown was going to put 135 million people back into poverty with the possibility of starvation. So becoming, you know, when we opened up, the world got wealthier. And as they locked it down, the world got poorer. And so it looks to me like as we globalize, we are going to be a richer world. And as countries have to look at themselves and say, am I providing good government service to my people? And if I'm not, people are going to leave, money's going to leave, we'll have a brain drain, we'll have businesses leave, and I and my country will become poorer. But if I become open and I allowed more trade and more dynamism around into my country will become richer. And so there is, you can see a world in which you get a lot of what government is an insurance policy. You could see a world in which I get my healthcare insurance from Chile and my Social Security from Dubai, and my workman's compensation insurance from some country that hasn't even been invented yet. Because, I mean, after all, you can provide insurance just with the technologies that are out there today without having it be tied to any geographic border. So I believe these geographic borders eventually are going to dissolve. And they already have started because of the internet. And now with Bitcoin, the blockchain, smart contracts, and surveillance, we're already seeing that now we have global currency, global surveillance, global security, lots of interesting things happening globally. And that globalism is good for all of us. So I think this is going to be a really a beautiful time going forward. The world's becoming more decentralized. Governance is going to have to compete or be accountable to its people. And that's going to be an exciting thing. And for those of you who are entrepreneurs, that's an amazing, enormous industry that's being transformed. The biggest industries in the world are already starting to be transformed. Banking, insurance, government, commerce, finance, all of these industries are already being transformed by Bitcoin, the blockchain, smart contracts, artificial intelligence, and surveillance. So this is, and then if as an investor, it's interesting, you almost are at risk if you're not, I mean, if you're a fiduciary and you have this huge risk that if you have all your money, all your cash tied up in fiat and tied up in a government way, tied to one government, all of a sudden the US government prints $12 trillion. Well, the dollars you have are now worth 20% less. As a fiduciary, you probably should have had some Bitcoin because that would balance it out. And so I think and Bitcoin is clearly the leader in decentralized currency. If your government, if you're in Nigeria, the Naira drops 30-50% every year. If you're a fiduciary and you're holding Naira, you should be diversifying into cryptocurrencies, into Bitcoin, into other places, so that you are watching your company cash or your government's cash.
We'll definitely talk more about technology closing up the gap between countries and making them compete along the way for entrepreneurs, for services, for cash. And definitely Bitcoin is one of those tools that will make funding more supranational, less subject to borders. I want to ask Florian here about their impact fund, and how do they think funding impactful entrepreneurs in the region is changing it to be more competitive with more developed markets?
Yes, thank you, Arun. And Tim, I can only underline what you're saying here. Again, we are an impact investing firm, so we thrive financial returns as well as doing impact on the ground. Our focus is on investing equity or private debt in commercial companies servicing the rural population in emerging markets, Africa, Asia, and Latin America. We've been doing that for 13 years. And our focus is really on, as technology has been kicking in, compared to where we are in the past, where the risk was high, technology was not there, and it was very difficult to match it with an investor approach, saying, why should I invest in emerging markets in these areas where the risk is so high and the reward would not be, because we're not looking at IPOs, we're just looking at helping SMEs to build them out. Again, we do that in a traditional way, and we have learned that we have to de-risk or adjust the risk reward. We also have learned that technology is a key enabler to resolve access and affordability of goods and services to that population. And this is where tech-enabled and tech, and we see that specifically during COVID times right now, that our non-tech companies are suffering in value in the portfolio. our tech-enabled or tech companies are really going through the roof. And of course, you're in an area where the adoption rate is faster. You're leapfrogging, you're not disrupting, so you need less capital to do so. So it's a very exciting time. But also you've seen that millennials and beyond, the quest for purpose is there. So you see a huge and massive amount of money, let's say, coming into purpose or into sustainability or even into impact. Not only because of technology, because of the fourth industrial revolution where everybody's connected. So this is a big change. At the same time, also a lot of the aid money, the traditional aid money, US money, European money going to Africa, for example, it's a one-off. And very often you don't know really what is the impact on the ground. So the aid money is moving also into impact investing, but more on a catalytic side. And you can see that, of course, also in the US with the big foundations, the Gates Foundation, Rockefeller Foundation, all of them going from a pure philanthropic into that impact space. So it's not, and then it's an important part because we have a psychological barrier. We believe either you make money or you do good. So it's for us, not for the younger ones, difficult to match. So what, I'm investing and I'm doing good? Yes, it's a business, is a force for good. So of course you have social responsible investing where you said, let's not harm the world. Then you go into ESG where you say, I have certain criteria to intentionally look at companies, what is their benefit towards not only the shareholder, but the stakeholder. And then you go to impact investing where you want to claim the intentionality and additionality of capital resolving issues of the world. And you see that there's a major trend. And this has basically led that we are now looking at blended finance funds and combinations where actually we have first African countries has seeded one of our funds right now together with Smart Africa being an alliance. By the way, Tunisia is of course a big player in the Smart African Alliance, where you have a tech fund doing seed stage investment in areas where angel investors are not able, but you have a catalytic first loss tranche. The risk reward of the financial investor is reduced because you have that cushion. And that covers this fallout of the companies which will not make it, like in a venture fund. But you don't have to bet on a high return or an IPO, like a Facebook or something, spray and pray, but because you can do that, so you have to do it a little bit longer. So it's a very exciting time where we see a vibrant, entrepreneurs and young people coming up, very well educated, online educated very often, where it's a massive transformation happening in emerging markets, a massive possibility to invest in and really scale this company with less money, faster time, but in terms of the adoption. However, you have to have more patient capital and certain learnings kicking in. So, for example, incubator programs, which like we in the US or in Europe are, but here it's a different approach. So it's a very exciting time, and a very exciting time where you see different types of investors aligning in the same way, and therefore really being able to enable to fund startups in an exciting way.
Thank you so much, Florian. Now we got two people speaking from an outside perspective. Let's dive more into the region, and I'll start with Ahmed. So Ahmed, you are a Saudi, you live in Saudi Arabia, you are an investor, you have a company yourself. Saudi Arabia is one of the G20 countries, and it's definitely a driver for investment and cash flow in the region. Can you tell us about the ecosystem in Saudi Arabia and how it's developing in terms of funding and startups? Can you turn the microphone on, please?
Can you hear me now?
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you to all of you. Both speaker Tim and Florian, very intelligent and fruitful introduction. Thank you very much. We appreciate it, and very actually true to what's happening in this region. I was saying that I'm wearing different hats here, so I'll come back to your answer. We have Saudi Arabia market, which is almost similar to the whole GCC, okay, not the Middle East. And then we have the African market, and I have the responsibility to be on the board and creator of Startup Gates to help startups and entrepreneurs in Africa and Middle East to give them an ecosystem where they can really excel. We have a lot of challenges, and we'll talk about some of these challenges. But for Saudi Arabia, per se, I personally started an entrepreneurship program about 3-4 years ago, because that did not exist in Saudi Arabia. But finally, I started to invest and innovate in that area. The entrepreneurship model was not set up, but with the new government, with the young leader we have, and with the 2030 program or scope, they have initiated something called Munshaat, which is the SME support for startups. Government of Saudi Arabia, they pledge in that about 70 billion riyal, which is about $20 billion, to invest in startups and support them to excel, whether investment, training, strategies, setting up all the ecosystem that exists, which is international standards. And that really created many funds and fund of funds in Saudi Arabia. One of the biggest is the government, the public investment, the PIF, called Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia, and that is investing big time in the small companies, in startups, and in government companies. They almost now government is doing all their businesses through companies that are owned by PIF, and these companies are also investing on startups. But 2 years ago, the government of Saudi Arabia, they invested 4 billion riyal, which is about $1.2 billion in a fund. Okay, and that fund, it's a fund of funds. So one of the challenges to us, they said, if you invest $1 million, we'll give you $1 million, we'll match it. So that worked for about a year, then they slowed down. Why? I don't have all the details why they stopped that model, but the model was there. So, but we have seen a lot of companies today, a lot of startups in Saudi Arabia that has investment from government, from funds of, when I say government, I mean the funds of the governments, and from the public funds, from the public VCs and the angel investors. Now all our kids now are thinking now, so that cycle is rolling, and there's a movement now in the public, and I think one of the biggest thing is the entrance of the ladies, the women. The women now has I guess not same rights, but they have more rights in the workplace, in the market than boys. And I'll give you one example, which is really gives you an idea, which is a real example. My daughter, one of my daughters, I have 4 daughters and a boy. One of my daughters, number 3, is a dentist, and they're hiring them in a government positions. There's a public position, but I'm just giving a good example to give you a real data, not statistical data, real data. She said there is a 1,166 positions for a new dentist in the Saudi government in different locations. Okay, they're taken by high grades. You know, they're taken about grades of school, college graduation, grades on the test, the medical test, and all that. And the statistics is really you can't really believe it. They took 170 boys and the rest are ladies. Can you imagine? So now the boys are going to the high court to take the Ministry of Health to high court, say why you're hiring more women than men. This is a fact today.
And so that's the other way around.
So it is. So I mean, you're talking about 1,166 position. So almost 1,000 to almost what? I think about 10% or 15% of, not 15%, I think 12% of boys that they match the ladies. So the ladies have really they have showed themselves in the marketplace. They have full right. They can do whatever they want. They can invest, and statistically, 50% of the money. This is before any changes. 50% of the money is in the women's hand. Okay, and actually that's liquidity, beside their gold and their jewelry, whatever.
with that being said, thank you very much for your insightful words, Ahmed. I would go to Malek, who's a woman. She lives in the UAE. And Tim has mentioned a very important point, which is trust. You can't build an ecosystem, you can't build a functioning system without trust. And trust is mainly about legal certainty, right? Legal certainty is very important as much as the perception, but also like when it comes to issues, you will go to law, right? So can you tell us about the legal system in Middle East and Africa? How would you evaluate that from like, is it helpful to thrive for startups and funds? Is it enough what we have now in terms of laws? I know, for instance, here in Tunisia, they have given a lot of incentives for investors, but still, let's talk about the patents. Let's talk about IPOs. So all of these are legal things that we need to look into when someone needs to invest or even start a business.
Thank you, Harun, for having me, and thank you for the gentlemen in the panel. Being the only women around, is like I hear Mr. Ahmed talking about how women are taken into startup and being accepted and having they are put forward into investment schemes. Actually, I felt kind of happy about it, but at the end of the day, we want to be equal and we want to have gender equality from both sides, because I wear different hats also. I am the legal person. I'm also an entrepreneur. I am a philanthropist. I am also for women empowerment with different programs and so on. I am in the space industry. At the same time, I am international business legal counsel. So talking first of all about the legal climate in a certain economy, in a country, it's very, very important to attract the investors to come to their country. It's one of the determinants that it will, based on studies and scholars' work and so on, is one of the determinants that will encourage the investor to come and invest. Legal uncertainty is something very, very important in order to come to invest through different schemes of investment, joint venture or a foreign direct investor or any of the or partnership. So it's something like from my side, when a foreign investor or a foreigner wants to go to any country that comes through my side, because actually I practice internationally. I practice not in certain jurisdiction. Actually, space industry is international by nature. So depends on the nationality, the activities, the contracts, the stakeholders in the contracts, and so on. So and also what is good also is the call for from the governmental entities in different areas and space agencies. They call for startups and technology and to apply for apply for funding opportunities and so on. And this we see the European Space Agency doing it a lot. Now we go back to for example, African countries. Actually, we see from the law cases that they are published on everywhere, and we are studying about it and reading about it. There are a lot of legal uncertainty in a term of the sudden change of laws. All in the sudden, and the big stakeholder, big investors, they are prone to lose their investments there. So of course there are remedies, but these remedies, are they really they will really give the investor what he lost? Usually it's a little bit difficult in certain jurisdictions and certain countries, and that's why the thing is like what we are especially coming from this space sector, space industry is very, very lucrative, and now space industry is everywhere, is attracting investors. because also I published an article. If you type my name, it will come out on Google, one of the journals of space journals. And I put the investment schemes that they are going into space sectors. And the return on investments is high compared to other activities right now.
Malek, I have a follow-up question on that. For instance, for space, for the space industry, do you think that we have a ready legal framework to start working on space business? Can you give us examples of countries who are Middle East and Africa who are pioneers in terms of laws that ensure that the space industry is not overregulated, but also it's still something that is manageable?
Well, we have huge actors, big actors like Yasat in UAE, other space satellite companies in the Middle East and also in Africa. We have a lot of startups that they started, and actually when we say space industry and space economy, there are two different things, because space industry is narrower than space economy. Space economy is any activity that could touch space in it. Let me explain here. I have different terminologies that it's important to highlight. We have the upstream sector, we have midstream sector, we have downstream sector, and we have also the end user. So taking the satellite, actually, the satellite on orbit is in the upstream sector. Then we have, these are examples just for the audience to grasp the thing. Then we have the midstream, which they are the operator and ground infrastructure and operations. Then we have the downstream, they are the space services. Then we have the end user. You and I now, we are using Zoom. And if we're gonna, if we're gonna see how much the economy is making, for example, the upstream worldwide, in a recent study this year, it was for the upstream $102 billion, midstream was $28 billion, downstream 187, and so on. So the high numbers, and also other research was done by a big stakeholder, also PwC, and they are talking about the resilience of the space sector during the COVID-19 crisis. And actually we see that, for example, satellite imagery, the satellite data, it went higher during and also the telecommunication went, ICT went higher during the COVID-19.
Thank you for this, for these lighting data, Malek. I would go to Mr. Mohammed Salah. If he's here with us, I can see his camera. Mr. Mohammed, so you have a fund, you are managing a fund that invests in different stages. Basically, you invest in seed, Series A, and even later stage. You have also, I guess, an acceleration stage fund, and it's based in Tunisia. And Tunisia is today known for having an ecosystem that is vibrant, but also a legal framework that is under test. Can you tell us more about this ecosystem? And so what are your expectations during the next 10 years? Do you think that we'll have a Tunisian unicorn at some point?
We hope so. We hope so that we have a unicorn. But I think that what is amazing in the Tunisian ecosystem is that it has been started, I think, 10 years ago, with a couple of business angels that have thought about how to change the business model in the economy and trying to encourage innovation and encourage young people to set up their own business. And but what was interesting in this approach is that it was around the innovation. And it was the key word, and trying to say, okay, we can offer opportunities for young people, but we need, because they are well educated, because we have university, because we have a good level of education in university, we try to make them innovate and set up their own business, but it's not microfinance. But I'm speaking about the ecosystem. It doesn't mean that there is a microfinance in Tunisia, but I think that the ecosystem of startups in Tunisia is turning around the innovation. It's very important, and innovation is not in technology, but it's in biotechnology, in healthcare, in other sectors that can offer a good value of technology for products and for services. Also, what is amazing in Tunisian case is that the ecosystem has pushed the regulator to make new regulation around the startups. It was a work task force and that had from civil society working around this idea of Startup Act. Startup Act is the legal framework, and the whole framework about encouragement and incentives given to the startups and given to entrepreneurs around the three main pillars. The first pillar is about startup, and this system will give kind of label for startups. They are applying in online to have this label, and if they group a couple of conditions, mainly innovation and scalability, they can have given a label, and this label will allow them to have the tax incentives, social security incentives. They can have the technological card, this business, and it's a bank card that can have trading abroad with foreign currency, etc., etc., etc. But what is important that the government and around the college, and I'm a member of this college, and it's an independent body that will say, okay, this startup has a label, and it means that they have some kind of innovation and scalability. Second pillar is about the fund of funds. So to finance all this ecosystem, we need to have funding. And for that, the government has made a capital raising, fundraising from financial institutions, international institutions, and now they succeed to have something like 100 million euro. It's very big, it's very huge compared to the Tunisian economy, in order to fund these startups around a concept of fund of fund.
Yeah, I want to follow up on this. So we hear a lot about governmental aids from usually foreign funds in Tunisia, but there's a lot of questions on how this money is getting to startups and basically the channels for this.
Yes,
money
the channel is very The channel is very transparent. It was the answer and the requirement of international investors. So the international investors required a couple of rules in order to make this money transparent, and the governments of this money, all this mechanism, very transparent and obeying to international standards. There is a couple of conditions to be respected. Third pillar is about the ecosystem. So there is a lot of incentives in order to make sustainability, to give the sustainability for this ecosystem, turn around incubators, crowdfunding, about accelerators, about let's say the common spaces where to put laboratories, etc., etc. So all the ecosystem will have its own subventions and its own funding in order to make it sustainable for all of them. So we have the three pillars in order to make this ecosystem of innovation and startups growing.
Last follow-up for you, Mr. Mohammed. So we all know that investment is all about exits, right? As an investor, you want to exit either with an IPO or an acquisition, usually. So do you think that at the end of this pipeline, there are chances of Tunisian startups being acquired or going public? And going public where, basically? We know that African stock markets are not that reliable.
To be honest, it will depend on the quality of startups, and I think that in Tunisia, it's not because I'm invested with these startups, but I think that there is some very interesting things to do. Even now, we have good exits from international investors of our startups, but it will be more and more accelerated with this fund of fund that will make some Series A investments and Series B, let's say, investments. And I think that because we have chosen these startups around the scalability, so I think that have good chances to scale to the African countries, to the European countries, to be international startups, and I think that they have all the chances and all the key of success to become international and to attract and to be in the radar of international investors.
I would move to Hamid. Hamid is based in Iran, if I'm not mistaken. You are an economist, I would say. So tell us about Iran, firstly, in terms of as an ecosystem, microfinance, etc. And tell us about your observation for the whole region in terms of macro and microeconomics.
Hello, everyone. Are you hearing me, Harun? Okay. Thank you, Harun, for this time to give me time to talking with the professional people from around the world. If I want to talk about the Iran now, as the other countries, the investment situation is not good, not bad, but because in Iran before the Mr. COVID, we having the professional funds, for example, the energy, the fintech, and the other ones, and now they are working. And during the first half of the Iranian year, not 2020, we invested in. This shows during the COVID, Iranian investment fund was more active in comparison with the before. And the economy in Iran, same as the other countries now, has fighting with COVID. But the situation now is better than in comparison with 2 or 3 months ago. And also about the region, if I want to talk about the innovation ecosystem, because as you know, I was the venture capital manager for 2 years in Iran. And after that, I started my advisory to the other countries, and majority of them are from the GCC countries, Oman, UAE, and Bahrain. And now I'm working with 2 African countries. Harun, in my
I guess we lost Hamid, I'm not sure, but yeah, so I'll go to Joha in the meantime. Joha, you are a mentor for startups, right? And we talked a lot about funding. Let's talk more about startups. Tell us, do you think that we have enough talent and visionary leaders in the region to have unicorns?
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. First of all, it's my great honor to be on board this excellent lineup. So just a small correction. I'm originally from Finland, and now I've been based out of Qatar for the past 8 years, and I'm the head of a business incubation center down here. I work a lot with university-based researchers, faculty, staff, and students. So, first of all, before coming down here about the region, you totally get a different perception, having lived in the US and mostly Western Europe. So not until you actually get here and start exploring and seeing what the place is all about, that's really an eye opener. So I would encourage everyone who's actually interested in the place, come over here, travel a bit once we're able to travel a little bit more freely and then see what the place is all about. There are a lot of things that have been tapped on already. I'm of course mostly based out of the GCC countries that I'm the most familiar with. I've been helping out about 600 startups here in the region, mostly in Qatar, UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait, also in Saudi. So it's just fantastic. I mean, we know that there's a very young population in the region right now, and only that is just a humongous potential. It's not only a pull, but sometimes also a push. We know the government, let's say, worry in terms of diversification. I think all of the MENA region and countries, it is a challenge in terms of how to make sure that our youth will have enough employment opportunities, and of course entrepreneurship is definitely possibly the most important avenue for that. So that's something that I'm feeling the vibe right now. Some of the countries here in the region have been very blessed with oil and gas. For example, Qatar seems to have the highest purchasing power in the whole world per capita, which is crazy. So at the same time, we're experiencing different ends. I feel that on one hand, we have so much, people have already so much. So what's the real trigger and motivator to actually walk down the alley of entrepreneurship? Why take more risks? Why choose the fact that you can get a nice government job for a, let's say, $15,000 monthly salary starting off a net, because most of the countries don't have income taxes. So it's really a curious case. We have very different challenges, pros and cons in different countries, in my opinion. Some are very small, others are big. So I would start off by actually analyzing MENA as a humongous region. So analyzing basically country by country and understanding the pros and cons. Just like previous speakers have talked about the global mindset, I think this is a truly enabler for unicorns and for really successful companies, because, for example, Dubai, Doha, our population is 90% international, meaning there's only 10% local and 90% is from somewhere else. So really be able to tap on this growth potential when it comes to organic.
I have one question.
Please.
Question for you. What is a common advice that you would give startups in this emerging region, these emerging markets? What is the common mistakes that you would advise against doing?
It's like startups are always contextually based, to be honest with you. So if we're talking about an R&D base, whether there's a patenting matter, first of all, if you are in the process of coming up with some R&D related, you're applying for a patent, make sure you understand who the owner actually of the patent is, whether it's a university, other researchers. So that can be one issue. Other issues, in my opinion, is I think still in the region, we look at MENA as the one and only option if we go international. Whereas in Europe and US, we would see like the whole world. You get me? Like we understand there's Arabic, there's English, and there's French that are important languages in the region. But I encourage my babies to actually look way beyond the MENA region. It may be, great starting point to look from, for example, Qatar into Oman or Kuwait, but don't stop there, because, the chances of actually having a successful company are at least on average and possibly even better than any other startup out there.
So what are the challenges of providing a global solution from Middle East and Africa? So today, let's say we have basically, at least in Africa, the GCC has a higher income. So in Africa, the production has low cost, so you can do software for less, you can do hardware for less. But at the end of the day, we don't manage to export technology. So what are the barriers that startups face in becoming global?
That's an interesting and fascinating question. My background in Europe and US actually helps that out. I'm always comparing, like, what would a company, a startup company do? What would be the path for it to become successful, to go international? And those are interesting set challenges, because as we know, there are a lot of fans around here, but it's still fairly nascent ecosystem. So I would say governments are taking very big role in terms of diversification, in terms of helping out, but that may be a longer process. I feel that time is of essence for startups, and sometimes we lose out on, it takes too long of a period of time until actually they can get funding. This is one aspect, which is kind of, it's interesting, but at the same time is the sign of still fairly nascent ecosystem. We're definitely getting there. We have a lot of hype and a lot of interest, but at the same time, the next level in terms of implementation, and actually, as you asked about unicorns, I see that as a challenge. We don't have so many, successful cases out there internationally who could actually come back and tell us, this is what we had to do. So we're still building, those unicorns, as you said, out of Tunisia or Saudi Arabia or Qatar. So I see that as a challenge.
We definitely need more proof of concepts to boost the ecosystem. I'll go to Abdurrahman, who's based in Egypt, and Egypt is basically a 100 million person. So it's,
yes, exactly, yes.
In terms of population, is the biggest in the region. So tell us, how is technology doing there? How are startups helping you solving daily issues, daily problems that you can find in Egypt, but not necessarily in Europe or North America? Tell us about the funding ecosystem in Egypt. I have heard that the last years have been very vibrant.
Okay, first, thanks a lot for this introduction, and my pleasure to talk to you, to be in one of the speaker from this kind of board. Egypt is booming after COVID-19 for the digital transformation, because already entrepreneurs think about it to increasing and to using the technology to make monetization. And we already established before COVID-19 to create a base of incubation, acceleration, and infrastructure for the investment for entrepreneurs, because we already have we have a number of hats, different hats as an investment side, because already represented for the venture capital, and otherwise for the investor to invest for the many of startups for the different sectors. But already entrepreneurs is already oriented to make different or using different technology to be make small startups, or to how to make a solution to develop or to make more than scalable for different market, because it's a COVID already.
Can you give us an example of an Egyptian startup
like of Swavel, its application, it's like the concept for the Uber and the Kareem. It's already booming after or during COVID-19, that gets the investment above $80 million, and get acquiring from different venture capital at region and different venture capital at Africa. The different concept for Highland. Highland, it's like application for the same supporting the installment for the requesting like of nearby of drivers. It's the same concept. It's already get the investment $23 million, and we have number of success stories at Egyptian market because already make a matchmaking with the entrepreneur. Once you get the idea more realistic and more reasonable to get the applicability to make a gross hacking, because the investor, we needed to focus about, or you invest for any startup, you need to get a base or like of how to get the from a return of investment from this kind of startup. Because if you already invested for the kind of these startups, we needed to focus about how to make a scalable for this idea or this kind of product, how to make a penetration to a new market, how to get a like of cooperating.
Can you list three big challenges that you have in Egypt from an investor perspective, but also from an entrepreneur perspective?
Maybe cash flow. It's cash flow. It's already the investor is already oriented to invest, but already sometime it's already fact some of issue about the cash flow, because already investing for the different sectors. This is a first challenge for the startup. The second challenge for startup as a make oriented team to work together and understanding the level of scalability and to make continually for the startups. And last challenge for the startup about the penetrating market. It's a penetration market. We needed to focus about how to study, how to make external factors affect this market, like of Gulf, Africa, Europe state, because already external factors, the many affected for environmental, for the political, for any kind of factors reflected about negativity of this kind of startup. However, already good chance right now it's for the digital solution and digital transformation. It's booming. Like everyone, we can using this technology to penetrate from any place based on investor oriented.
Your input. I want to go back to Tim for a second, then back to Hamid. Tim, can you give us? You have heard people here. You have heard some insiders' input. Can you give us advices that you would give to any founder or even an investor in this emerging region?
Yeah, you know, it kind of comes back to trust. I think if you say you're gonna do something, do it. If you always come through, even if you know that it's not gonna work out short term. You say you're gonna do something, then something changes, and you go, oh boy, why did I say I was gonna do that? If you still do it, you start to send a message to the people around you that person is to be trusted. And I think, I think that is probably, and if you can get it to happen from the top, you know, if the leader can be trusted, then corruption dissolves and then wealth grows. And so I think, you know, as an entrepreneur, you want to set an example, because if you become a successful entrepreneur, you might have 10,000 people working for you, and they're all going to do what you do. So be prepared. You want to make sure that you're doing things that you want 10,000 people to do with you. The other thing is, something I've noticed is that it is true that in the Middle East, the women are coming in droves. We at Draper University, we had an open enrollment for people from Saudi, and 3/4 of them were women, and they came in droves. They were really interested in becoming entrepreneurs. They needed more confidence. Confidence for an entrepreneur is really critical. And if you can build that confidence, and then you can grow from there. And then also with women owning 50% of the money or controlling 50% of the money, they should be risking that money. And so I think, you know, for some reason, men are more willing to risk money. You put money in, make it risk capital, good things happen. So, and I guess it all comes back down to trust, because as a venture capitalist, if I fund you, that means I trust you, and then you live up to that trust. Most times people live up to that trust, and they become trustworthy themselves, and then they spread that trust throughout their company, and their company grows and becomes very successful. And then the other thing is, as an investor, I would not encourage the use of the word exit. I don't think that that's healthy. I think that what you really want to do is grow something. You want to build a company of value. At Draper Associates, when we invest our investors' money, they often ask about exit. And I say, wait a second, what we're doing is we're funding companies, we're funding entrepreneurs that are going to grow those businesses. And when we fund those entrepreneurs, we're looking for how high is up. If this works, how great will it be? As opposed to what could go wrong and how do we get out? We're thinking, what could go right? And if it goes right, how great could it be? And then, sure, down the road, maybe the company goes public, maybe some big company buys them, whatever. But the real goal is the journey, the funding an entrepreneur and seeing how that entrepreneur can transform the world. And we've been fortunate. We've backed unicorns on 3, maybe 4 continents. We've had 35 unicorns over time, and we funded them from when they were two guys and a dog, or a girl, a guy, and a dog. And the way to get to something great is you just build. It's usually built organically. When people, that vision fund, some the entrepreneurs would say, hey, we need $30 million. And the vision fund would say, we're going to give you 300 million. I mean, an entrepreneur then starts getting sloppy and forgets how they got to where they were. So instead, help entrepreneurs grow organically. Maybe they do need a little money to supercharge, or to grab market share, or to do something extraordinary, but don't flood an entrepreneur with money. And that's hard for an investor to do, because investors like to all jump in together, and that's usually not healthy. When all the entrepreneurs come in, they go, oh, here we go, this is going to be great. That's usually a bad sign for an entrepreneurial venture. I guess it may be a bad sign for an investor too. If they get too much money, they try to solve their problems by just throwing money at them instead of getting creative and doing great things to solve those problems. So I guess those are the things that sort of come to mind. One is build trust from the top all the way down, and from yourself out. Fund entrepreneurs, take risks on entrepreneurs that have big visions that if they work, they'll be really great. And then have a sense of understand how money can make a company, but it can also break a company. And that, I think those would be 3 things that might help.
So this is really amazing. So it's narrowed to simple things. First, trust, and then for entrepreneurs, definitely, but great things. For investors, invest in great things. Don't look a lot into exit. So I would love to hear Hamid, who has been cut off for some reason. So Hamid, tell us, from a micro and macroeconomic point of view, where do you see the region is going? And if you have any follow-up for our panelists, please feel free. We can't hear you. Can you turn the microphone on?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Now it's okay?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I don't know what's the problem. We have the cutoff. I was talking about the association in the MENA region, the African and also the Middle East countries, about the economics, based on the UN statistics, and it's published by the PitchBook site. The investment in Africa during the first half of the 2020 was 2x more than in comparison with US in innovation ecosystem. This means Africa and also the Middle East region having a great view about the innovation, and also the economy of innovation now is thinking by the university professor to being a course in university in Middle East region, the innovation economics. Because of that, I think all of the startups, funds, the investors should consider some points about their years ago, I was talking with an investor from said, yes, I invest in Europe. But now in 2020, he completely changed his attitude and coming back to Africa, having a fund in Ghana, and now he's supporting all of the African countries. Based on my experience, because I'm for 6 years working with all of the GCC countries and also the Middle East and the African countries, especially South Africa, we don't have a special information bank of investors. If we want to make an easy access for startups to fund, we should have the information bank for them. I mean, we need an association. For example, MENA Investment or MENA VC Association. It's included all of the information about the investor around the MENA region. One startups, if need money, directly can come to this association. And based on their feed, for example, fintech, AI, the other things, they direct them to the funds. To the funds is ready for investing. Before that, they can ready them, for example, making some pitch book, making some other things. It can reduce the cost and also the time and costs because they directly be connected with investor. On the other hand, they can be ready for present themselves to the investor. Because of that, the mutual fund or the common fund is the best idea in my view for the MENA region. All of the African countries having the special investment fund for startups. This is a model kind for the co-investment. In this way, they can reduce the risk. For example, every fund putting $1 million, for example, and we have $20 million with 20 funds, and it can reduce the risk of investment by the co-investment. For conclusion, if I want to say, it's better we having the joint venture institution in MENA region by cooperation of all of the investors.
Does anyone has an input
yes,
follow up on what have been said by all the panelists?
Sorry, Harun?
I was asking, thank you so much for your intervention, Hamid. I was asking all the panelists, does anyone have something to add, a follow-up feedback on something? Okay, I'll go to Ahmed.
Yes, I think back to the Saudi Arabia market is, the ecosystem is set up. I think the trust is there, the legality is there. But I think from a startup gate point of view, we're facing challenges in Africa. And I think the trust is still not there, the legality is not there. And we're really working on trying to innovate as Startup Gate, trying to innovate to see how can we turn that to all online, and make it electronic involvement, shareholding, and presidency to do help with the movement of money, the support. But I think it's a very big opportunity. And if we listen to what Timothy have said here today, if we use Bitcoins or any similar, I think from Tunis' point of view, we have worked with the Tunis government, and I think they're very supportive. And I think we'll have a breakthrough in this year. Hopefully, we're working on that, and hopefully we can help to give a channel or an opportunity for the African startups, because there is a huge opportunities there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ahmed. So, anyone has a feedback or an input that he wants to mention? Okay, so I'll go. Okay, go ahead, Malik. I can't hear you. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to add something that Mr. Hamid he mentioned about having information about the investors in the MENA region. Because it's very important, because actually I've been approached by a lot of startups related to the space industries from outside of the country. and they wanted to outside of UAE, and they wanted to come here for opportunities, for fundings opportunities. And I like it's a little bit, you know, because I'm more likely active internationally. I advise governmental agency in space. I do also international corporations and so on. Now I decided to come into the region with Vernwell, which born this week. It's an advisory company also in the space industry, and also tech transfer from different countries into here and vice versa. So I really call on the investors and the stakeholders to see how we can I can get through to them, and how I can be the bridge to them in order to get these startups going in this area, and vice versa, the startups also.
Quick question for you, Malek. What is your comment on the trust thing that Tim has mentioned? From a legal perspective, since you are a jurist, how we can build trust?
Trust is very important. Actually, what I do when I see a contract from someone, to my client, I look at the intention of the contract to see if that person will build trust through the way how these clauses are done. Trust, actually, this is how I see that that person, he can be trusted or not. It's the basis of all kind of fundamental dealing with the human species. Trust is like, without trust, we cannot go further on the personal side, and also in the business side. It's very, very important. And it can be built, like I said, for me, I don't know the people, I just see contract and I see the intention behind it, because it's very, very important. And it's one of the major criteria in any business for the investor, for the entrepreneur, and for the partners also, because actually I see a lot of problems also between people. They are in the same startup, they did not put together the right clause and the right terms and conditions and obligations, and later on they have issues, and the startup may be.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Malek. I'll give the last word to Juha, and just I wanna have your comment on this. Tim says build great things, and he also says invest in great things. As a startup mentor, what's your comment on that?
So I definitely, I think it's a very important topic we're tapping on right now, not only entrepreneurship culture per se, or innovation culture, but investment culture. And that is something is purely based on trust, and how to overcome that. You know, the region has this unique approach on investing, in my opinion. We're still looking at, real estate and up to a certain point, financial markets, but the whole startup culture, especially the way we look at it in Europe, or, let alone US, is still really growing up. So the whole is like, why would I put my money in something very risky? I've never done it before. Why should I do it now? The fact that I would be listed somewhere, I don't want to disclose my name. It's a humongous trust issue, in my opinion. So how to overcome this factor? It's a bit by bit process. It goes way beyond, like Malek and Hamid said, beyond contracts. It goes, it's face to face. It's, knowing someone, getting references. So this is a longer process, but it's a really important angle that we should, include, because rarely, I want to be more realistic and have feet on the ground. Most of the investment, especially seed investments, come from the country or nearby countries where these startups are at. And that's the way I look at it. So, so once we're on that level, then the next level is I also get a lot of, startups approaching me from other countries and say like, hey, do you know investors? And I was like, listen, it's a really long story, but we're still really developing that whole investment culture approach. And in my opinion, we could use some type of training for that. How would you become a startup investor here in the MENA region? I think that would be a really good eye opener for a lot of people, especially because there is wealth a lot around, a lot of wealth.
Maybe Tim can host some interns.
Sorry, Haran, I didn't hear that.
He said we need training for startup investors. I said maybe Tim can host some interns in his network.
Oh, absolutely. We do a lot to train entrepreneurs, as you know, We also do a lot to train venture capitalists, and that has been, or to train people to understand venture capital, train LPs to understand venture capital. And so we have done quite a bit of work that way. And it's actually nice that everybody else, we've been doing, well, Skype calls since the very beginning. I actually made the first Skype video call. So we're very comfortable with this, but it's actually nice to have the rest of the world start using Zoom, and so we can actually train remotely. You don't have to move from wherever you are. So that started to happen. We have Draper University Online, as you know, and that has become very successful. People have been very pleased with it, and it's been a good thing for entrepreneurs. We're going to be doing a VCX, which is training people to become venture capitalists. I think it's late this month, and so that's another training that we think is very valuable, and we can do it all remotely. So kind of a great opportunity to spread good words around the world, because now the rest of the world's on Zoom.
So definitely the region needs a lot of proof of concepts, a lot of training for both entrepreneurs and startup, but this can't happen only with experience, taking the risks for both, for investors and entrepreneurs. So I would like to thank you all for being present here, for your valuable input, for your insightful feedback. Special thanks for everyone who's watching us from over the world, our audience, but also our panelists are from 3 continents. We're happy to have you all, and have a great evening for the people on Central European time, but have a great day for you, Tim, on the Pacific time. Bye-bye.
Thanks for having us, Haroon. Nice hearing from all of you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you all. It was a pleasure. Bye-bye.
Haroon, maybe you can connect us all by email.
Sure. I'll definitely do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Haroon. Thank you very much.